In this video, you'll learn about the life and tragic fate of Andres Escobar, a talented defender for the Colombian national team. The 1994 FIFA World Cup was supposed to be the pinnacle of Andres Escobar's career, a chance to showcase his skills on the biggest stage in football. However, the pressure and expectations placed on him and his teammates were immense. Colombia was one of the favorites to win the tournament, and the entire nation was counting on them to bring home the championship. The Colombian team was led by Escobar, a natural leader and one of the most skilled defenders in the world. He was known for his calm and collected demeanor on the field, earning him the nickname the Gentleman of Football. But with great expectations comes great pressure, and Escobar felt the weight of his country's hopes on his shoulders.
Thousands of miles away in Bogota, Colombia, time has stopped as the fans will be watching and listening for their team as they battle the United States today.
Andres Escobar was born in Medellin, Colombia in 1967. Growing up in a country torn apart by violence and corruption, Escobar found solace in football. He began playing at a young age and quickly rose through the ranks, earning a spot on the Colombian national team by the time he was 22. His talent and leadership skills made him a fan favorite, and he became a symbol of hope for a nation struggling to find its identity. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Colombia was in the midst of a violent drug war, with powerful cartels vying for control of the country. The government was corrupt and violence was rampant. This was due to one of the biggest drug lords in the world by the same last name, Pablo Escobar. It was during this tumultuous time that Andres Escobar and other football players became unwitting symbols of national pride. They were seen as beacons of hope, and their success on the field was a brief respite from the chaos and destruction that plagued the country. Despite the intense pressure and scrutiny, Escobar remained humble and grounded. He was known for his charity work, often visiting hospitals and orphanages to bring joy to those in need. His kindness and generosity earned him the respect and admiration of his teammates and fans alike. Andres Escobar played for Nacional, one of the top clubs for Colombia, and he was part of the side that became the first Colombian team to win the South American competition, the Copa Libertadores. However, the club was then owned and used for money laundering by Pablo Escobar, forcing the players to do meet and greets as he was the club's owner. Andres was always uncomfortable with the idea, as he often spoke to his family about it, but he had to oblige like the rest of the players. But Colombia and the United States declared a manhunt for Pablo Escobar a couple of months before the 1994 World Cup, and Pablo was found and killed by the Colombian police after a failed arrest and an exchange of gunshots.
¿Qué va a hacer? No crean en ningún momento que porque Pablo Escobar fue asesinado vilmente se va a acabar la violencia en Colombia. No sean ilusos. No sean ilusos.
She was sadly right. The Colombian national team had a golden generation of players, alongside Escobar, who captained the team. The likes of René Higuita, Faustino Asprilla, and Carlos Valderrama. These group of players famously beat Argentina 5-0 in Argentina's own ground in a friendly, and were looking strong as they qualified for the 1994 World Cup. And many tipped Colombia to do well in the competition, and this created high expectations from the fans.
Jugábamos de memoria. Nos hicieron 2 goles, solamente en esas eliminatorias. Uno miraba al lado y decía, bueno, ahí está Andres Escobar, está aquí, está Andres García. Me quedé que eran de jugadores, eran los mejores. pero yo también tengo que ser el mejor, yo también me tengo que contagiar.
Yo con Andrés hablé pues antes del Mundial de Estados Unidos. Andrés ya tenía un contrato en el exterior. Esa noche me contó que tenía 2 propuestas, una para el Milán y otra para un equipo mexicano. Para él, pues lógicamente, el Milán era lo máximo.
Andres would talk about visiting Italy with his family after Milan's interest, and was set to take on a higher chapter in his football career.
There is no greater honor than wearing the national colors, no greater stage than the World Cup.
Colombia's first game in the World Cup was against Romania, and they surprisingly lost 3-1. And this was the beginning of the psychological effect of the team. Many rich drug dealers had placed big bets in Colombia and lost a lot of money, and the players were in fear of their lives. After the loss to Romania, one of the players' father called to tell them that their brother was killed in Medellin, and he wanted to go home straight away. But Escobar convinced him to stay and finish the World Cup for the supporters and their country. But with the crisis in Colombia, the pressure was immense. Colombia now had to win their next 2 games and face off against the United States, a team they had faced many times before in friendlies and qualification games, and won all of them. But before that, someone had programmed the TVs in the hotel where the players were staying and threatened to kill them all if they played Barabbas, one of the key players in the team. The coach, not wanting to put any more people at risk, pulled out Barabbas from the team, and the players called their family and loved ones back in Colombia, telling them to hide. All of this was on the minds of the Colombian players as they walked on the field to face USA. The 1994 World Cup was supposed to be Escobar's moment of triumph, but it turned out to be his biggest mistake. When he scored that own goal, he became public enemy number 1 in Colombia. The media and fans alike crucified him, calling for his head and labeling him a traitor. The pressure was too much to bear, and Escobar's mistake weighed heavily on his conscience.
Colombia, one of the favorites going in, was eliminated in the first round. The team returned home on Wednesday to anonymous threats.
Viewed as one of the favorites, they failed to advance, and Escobar accidentally scored a goal against his own team in a loss to the United States.
Este mundial marcaba el punto final para mí y para algunos jugadores que estación ya se me llenó la casa.
The aftermath of the game was brutal. Escobar received death threats, and his family was harassed by angry fans. The Colombian team was eliminated from the tournament, and Escobar's mistake was seen as the reason for their failure. The once beloved defender was now a pariah, shunned by the very people who had once idolized him. In the days following the World Cup, Escobar's life began to unravel. He received threatening phone calls and was even confronted by angry fans on the streets. The media continued to vilify him, and he became a scapegoat for Colombia's failures. It was a tragic turn of events for a man who had given his heart and soul to the sport he loved. On July 2nd, 1994, Escobar had gone out with some friends to a local bar. He had a couple of drinks and began talking with everyone. Then some people yelled out to him, "That was a hell of a goal you made," insulting him over the own goal he scored. Him and his friends decided to leave and head towards their cars. But the group of men followed Escobar to his car, provoking him, calling him homophobic slurs for scoring the own goal, in which Escobar replied it was an honest mistake. Things escalated and Escobar was shot 6 times, and for every gunshot the shooter shouted goal. Once for every time the commentator said it during the broadcast. Escobar died later in the hospital. His murder was a devastating blow to the football world and sent shockwaves throughout Colombia. The country was in mourning, and the loss of their beloved hero was palpable. What makes it more chilling is that Escobar's last words written to the country was "Life does not end here." Escobar's murderer was identified as Humberto Muñoz Castro, who worked for the cartel, as two witnesses identified the getaway vehicle that fled the scene. He was sentenced to 43 years in prison, but shockingly only served 11 due to good behavior. Many people believe had Pablo Escobar still been alive, no one would have the courage to assassinate the star player of his team. Andres Escobar's story is a tragic reminder of the intense pressure and scrutiny that athletes face. His mistake on the field led to a chain of events that ultimately cost him his life. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of idolizing athletes and the devastating consequences of our actions. What do you think about Andres Escobar's story? Share your thoughts in the comments below.